All right, well, welcome to Improving Your Marketing by Creating a Digital Twin of Your Sales Team. Glad everybody can join us today. And let me just start out, give you a quick overview of Winbound if you're not familiar with us. We provide digital marketing for small B2B marketing departments. So that's a marketing team of 1 to 3 people is usually our sweet spot. We've been focused on small marketing teams since 2010, based here in beautiful Madison, Wisconsin. But thanks to this little thingy called the internet, we can work with clients anywhere. We're specialized in manufacturing and industrial clients, but we'll work with any B2B companies. And the approach I'm going to show you here is going to be a lot of manufacturing references. But really, this approach can work with any B2B companies, sales oriented. Just some stats and some results we've got for a few of our clients over the years, really focused on traffic, leads, but we're also going to talk a lot today about the metric that's too often overlooked in marketing, and that's referrals. So we're going to jump into that in a little bit. So what to expect today? We're going to do, of course, how to create a digital twin of your sales team and include your customers in the process. We're going to create content for each stage of the real customer journey. Get ready for that. And then we're also going to be talking about tracking by referral sources, what I would call the overlooked metric. If you have any questions, feel free to share them in the chat. Kind of want this to be as interactive as possible. So Tony, Odessa, feel free to jump in with questions. Let me hear it. Beverages in the house. Do people have any beverages? Anybody of note? Got any good microbrews going today? I actually was traveling this past week, the last couple days. So I got in late and did not stock the beer cooler, but I will share this. Anybody enjoy Duff beer from The Simpsons? This is a Duff beer tumbler that my son gave me for Christmas. One of my most cherished gifts. So it is, I don't have any beer in it, but cheers anyone. Anyway, thanks for everybody for being here. So let's jump into this. I'm going to start out because this idea that we're going to talk about, it's based on what we're going to talk about. The concept behind it is kind of inspired by this, but I'm going to talk about the Tupperware Dilemma. So does this look like a cabinet in your house? A lot of people have the Tupperware overfloweth, right? So you've got a bunch of Tupperware in there. You got the lids, you got the bottoms. They never seem to match up. Things are getting lost. You're getting new Tupperware. You don't know where it came from. And eventually everybody's Tupperware looks like this. So I'm kind of a neat freak, just started out as a freak, got really refined to be a neat freak. And this would just bug the hell out of me. And try to do implement a lot of strategies to get the family to keep this thing under control. Never worked. And one day, my wife went out shopping, and I came up with what I would call an elegant solution. So what is an elegant solution? An elegant solution to a problem that's pleasingly ingenious and simple. So what I did, took all the Tupperware out of the cabinet, and I was like, first of all, we don't need all this stuff. Let's just get down to what we need. Put together the lids, the tops, and I looked at it. There was about 6 to 8 pieces, which is really all you typically need. And I was like, oh my God, here it is. It's all stacked up. There's not stuff flying everywhere. Put it in there. Very excited when my wife walked in the door. I'm like, you've got to see this. This is amazing. Of course, she was not nearly as amazed as I was. Went over, looked at it, and to my surprise, now I've given her some pretty lengthy training sessions on Tupperware organization, but this time she looked at it. The training session lasted all of about 5 minutes. She's like, oh, lids on the top, stack up. Okay, got it. That was it. She liked it. And what's more incredible, she followed the new organization, and she is a nanny for a family, and she showed them that, and they followed the solution as well. So this is an elegant solution, very simple to pick up, easy, and it lasts. So what we're going to go through here is the digital twin. Is the overarching theme to it all is we've tried to keep it as elegant as possible and very simple to follow, simple to track. So it's something that we start out to use to explain how this digital content marketing approach works. And it just seems to just we keep adding new parts to it, and it still seems to remain simple, at least for us. So let's hope it's an elegant solution for you as well. So every elegant solution has to have a problem or its challenge. And here's the challenge. Sales-oriented organizations never really relied on marketers. Okay, most sales companies are always just driven by sales team. And why? If you're a B2B company, or especially manufacturers, you typically have many customers to reach and different languages to understand. And what I mean by that is you're trying to market, if you're a manufacturer, you're trying to market, and you've got engineers you're trying to deal with and communicate. You've got purchasing people. Everybody's speaking a different language. Everybody's got different priorities. And they do have these multiple objectives. So the engineer might want something that performs really well. The purchasing person might want something that has a great warranty. The CEO, has got a budget. So there's multiple objectives. The products, the services are complex, whether it's manufacturing, insurance, whatever you've got. And there's a lot of training involved. So it's really hard for a marketer to get down to that level of training. And there's typically a lengthy sales cycle involved. So like we got Paul Perkins here, who sells insurance packages and to companies. And Paul, I'm sure you could vouch for the sales cycle can take a long time. There's a lot to explain. So these things, all these reasons is why a lot of these companies tend to be, not rely on marketing so much and don't interact with them. Well, that was all fine. This has been fine until why suddenly we have a problem. Suddenly all these B2B companies, manufacturers need help. Why? Because B2B customers are looking online. 67% of the buyer's journey is done digitally. So now you have to be there at some point in the buying process for your customer. You have to be represented. So we know this is a problem, and so how do we solve it? So this is the elegant solution that kind of came to us, and where I discovered this digital twin and the concept, it was at the manufacturing happy hour. It was an online Zoom thing, of course, and the host, Chris Lukey, who's been on this show before, does a great podcast, just invited some guests. And I think he had a group there, Emulate 3D. And what they were doing was presenting this thing called the digital twin. And what a digital twin in manufacturing is, it's a digital recreation of a product or a manufacturing process. And why they do this is in manufacturing, if you recreate a product, you use it to prototype, right? So you can test the product in different ways. Or if it's a process, you can, test different raw materials, things like that, and, kind of challenge the outcome and see different variables. And when I heard them talking about the digital twin, I was like, I had my Tupperware moment. I was like, oh, digital twin. We could create a digital twin of the sales team with content. We could be there for those prospects who are looking online and can't find a salesperson. Oh, we got a digital twin. So very excited. Didn't call my wife about this. I figured she was still reeling after the amazing Tupperware breakthrough. So let's talk about this now. Let's break it out then. Creating the digital twin. Step number one, internal feedback. So we've got this idea in our head. We're going to create a digital twin of the sales team. And so naturally to do that, we're going to have to talk to the sales team. We're going to have to get feedback from them, figure out what they're doing to sell and things like that. But I started to talk to some friends in manufacturing. This is where we start out with the concept. Let's get Deanna in here. And they said, look, you also have to talk to operations, and you probably get to talk to engineering. It really, everybody on the company side trying to get their feedback, especially can't forget management too, right? So I'm like, great, this is great, no problem. So here's an example of how it works. And this is pretty simple. And I'm sure a lot of you have done this, but maybe not. Go out if you're in marketing and reach out to a guy like John Schultz here from Delta Modtech, who's actually the trainer at Delta. And what we started doing is setting up interviews with John and just talking about getting down into the weeds a little bit about how the manufacturing process works with the machines that Delta Modtech makes. And, I'm basically, it's just an interview with me and John and the marketing person. I'm doing the writing on Delta Modtech stuff. And, John knows, he's an engineer. He knows this stuff inside and out. And a lot of it's over my head, but I record it, play it back. I'm able to I bring in the storyteller perspective, and we can create some content off of it. And what's amazing about this is, once you start reaching out to your organization, initially, John didn't want to have anything to do with me, was not looking forward to these meetings. But as he gets a chance to talk about himself and what they do, I can't stop him. And he's very happy to offer up information. And we've pulled together some great content, like this one's on a process called PCAMing that they invented. The other thing is when you start to talk to people and really pull out information from them, you'll get different perspectives. So like the company the marketing guy is like, yeah, we do PCAMing, but nobody really is concerned about that process. I start talking to a salesperson. She's like, everybody uses that. We got to talk about this. So you really start to pull out this and start to shape that digital twin. But then I started to think about it and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we're getting this from operations, sales, and engineering. And that digital twin's kind of a cool way to explain, how content marketing can work. But it's not true to the digital twin concept. I mean, the digital twin is that digital representation, but it's used to prototype. It's used to test things. And I thought, what if we started to get information back from customers that could inform the sales team? So we start doing one-on-one interviews with customers to get their feedback and what they were looking for. We can start to do keyword research and see what people are searching for at large, and then even do messaging and do testing on ads to change the headlines and see what people respond to. And ultimately, getting emotional data to kind of shape your marketing messaging. I'm going to talk about these three things, but as you can see here, then suddenly now we've got input from both sides. And that's really what we want to get to with the digital twin is content that's informed by the company, but then is shaped also by the customer. Let's just get a little bit deeper into the one-on-one conversations we have with customers. So we do 3 phone calls where we do a one-on-one interview with customer, and we just want to get their thoughts. We usually start out with the company, figure out what their viewpoint is and what they're trying to do, and then share a lot of that and get some just general feedback from the customers. It's called guerrilla research, very simple to do, qualitative, do 3 studies, and then we kind of pull together some of the things that the general feelings that are shared by each of the customers. The second thing, conduct keyword research. So everybody does keyword research and to optimize for search engine optimization, but we wanted to take it a little bit further and look for what people are really searching for and do this thing that we just recently have started to focus on. A technique used by Tom Gerenser. This is a great book called Think Like Google. it's not enough to just do keyword research. You also want to do search and look at search intent and really try and feel the empathy for the customer. Like, what are they trying to do, and put themselves in their shoes, and then tailor your content to kind of match that search intent. And try, the more you can put yourself in their shoes, the better chance you'll actually rank for keywords that you're trying to rank for. And this whole kind of search intent and empathy was the second thing we were going to do to pull from the customers. And then the third thing that this is aspirational for us this year, but something that we've got a few clients lined up that are very interested in doing this. Grant Gooding spoke here from Proof Positioning a few years ago for American Marketing Association. Grant's focus is on emotional data. And what he's trying to do is, and what he has done, is to quantify emotional data. So emotional data is, a best way I could describe it is what you really feel and what really drives your decision making, because emotions ultimately drive the decision making. And what he's done is he's got a software program where they'll take some attributes of a product or a service, and they'll share them to a group of customers, and they'll give them a group of attributes, and they'll say, like, why did you pick this? Why do you like this product? What do you look for? You look for, price? Is it the warranty? Is it service? And based on how quickly you respond, that's an indication of your emotion and how emotional you feel about it. So if it's price, you're like, it's not really that important. Was it reliability? Yes. If you respond that quickly, that's an indicator of emotional data. And so that's another factor that can drive that messaging. So think back to that confluence of the customer and the company and the messaging. We want to use data from both those sides to create that digital twin. And the goal here, ultimately, we're trying to be human. One of the trends we also picked up, we've been picking up over the last few years, I think all of us are so focused on tactics, digital tactics, plans, all the tools that are out there, all the automation. And at some point, you really got to pull yourself back and just think, what do people want? What's the human reaction? What do I feel? And I think that if you're creating that digital twin, you got to think about that, keep that thought in mind. Like, for example, Mark's a big proponent of, if it's going to annoy somebody, then don't do it. He's a big fan, for example, of ungating content, of not asking for somebody for an email address to get a piece of content. And he's got data that shows, which we'll get to, how effective that can be. So through all this kind of human element in creating this digital twin really started to resonate with us. So step 2, we've kind of got the idea on how to create the content around it. Let's get into the next kind of elegant part of the solution here. And that's how to create the content that we're actually going to get out there and distribute. So to do that, again, we're going to kind of go back to being more human. And we're going to do something here that Bob Burg has recommended. I don't know how many folks out there have read The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. It's a great book, and it's all about how to generate referrals and sales. And Bob's big thing is to really, kind of pay it forward and do people favors. But the one thing that he says, it's this old sales adage, and you've probably heard it before: people will only do business with you if they know you, they like you, and they trust you. Well, if we're going to create a digital twin of a salesperson, let's follow that adage. Let's follow that time-tested, proven formula that works for real-life human beings, and do the same thing with our digital twin. So how do we do that? Well, let's talk about different pieces of content for each stage. So when people are just starting to get to know you, let's get some informational content where we're just starting to address their problems. Once they know us, then let's get them to start to like us. Let's give them some content with specific tools that can help solve their problems. And then, once they like us, now let's get them to trust us. Let's share some information about the product and case studies and pieces of content which will really help build the trust. So know you, like you, trust you content. So what does that look like? The know you, the top of funnel helpful information. It's informative, focused on customer problems. These are blog posts, videos, infographics, guest blogs, social media, podcasts, things like that. Goal here, traffic, links, shares, likes, impressions, newsletter signups. We're really not looking to sell at this point. We're just trying to get people to know about us and get on their radar. So here's some different pieces of content what this looks like. Keyword-driven content, long tail keywords, like in this case, what is belt tracking, or how to set up tracking of a metal conveyor belt. These are terms that you can find through the keyword research. You can create a piece of content around that, start to rank for the keywords, get traffic. Empathetic content. So I put this post out, because we're always trying to reach marketing directors. And I'm a right brain thinker. I'm definitely not as adept at Google Analytics as my marketing, Ryan Alestro will tell you, my marketing guy. But so I wrote this post about what I do to overcome that and how I focus on more of a strategic approach and don't get down into the weeds. And my statistics, lack of statistics training doesn't really hamper me because I offset what I don't know with staff. And so I wrote this post about I struggle with analytics, and I shared it. And it got a 47% open rate on our newsletter. Again, trying to be more human, trying to connect with people. This was the subject line. Do you suck at analytics? And I guess, half of our readers do. So try and connect with people through your content, pay it forward content. So again, we're just trying to get people to know us. We did a profile piece on the Northeast Wisconsin Manufacturing Alliance. They're trying to improve workplace recruitment for manufacturing. There's a lot of skilled jobs that are not getting filled, and trying to improve the industry's how people regard the industry, especially among young people entering the workforce. So we did an article about them, and it got shared, picked up by Industrial Equipment News and Manufacturing.net. And it, we posted on LinkedIn. They posted it, they shared it. It's got 50 likes, 37 comments. A lot of people liked it who are in the industry. And those are great people. Then once they like a post that I put out, I can introduce myself to them and make that connection that way. Again, getting to know them. Research-based content. So here's a piece we did. Research is always a great way to get your word out and get people to know you. This was one we did for Berkshire Hathaway Travel Protection. Their clients are they're travelers and they want to stay safe. We did this post about safest places to travel and actually did research on it, quantitative research. And, that ranks #1 for safest places to travel and safest cities of the world. And you can see the volume there. So now we're getting ourselves using Google to get to know all these people. And in the process, people start to link to it, which will help on the trust factor as well. Guest content is great. You can also get onto other people's networks, share content there. This was for a printer client of ours. We actually did a profile of another nonprofit that they help, like a case study, and it got shared. And it actually drove a ton of conversions to their site just by, so this is one where somebody went right from no to like to trust all in one post. So great way to get out to know other people is to use other people's networks. So let's jump down to the middle of funnel content. These are interactive tools you can use to solve problems related to products and services. So downloadable charts, checklists, online calculators. The goal here, downloads, shares. Again, here's just an example. We do this content conversion scorecard. It's an interactive PDF. At the end of the presentation, you can send me a text and you can get the PDF for free, and then you can run this on your own website. We have a client, Wick Buildings. Kate Jordan's on the line, just joined Wick Buildings. How you doing, Kate? This is a configurator that they use on their site. And it's, you can design your own building. It's kind of like the mortgage calculator. And these are great tools to get people to link to your site and just, visit your site on a regular basis. Great referral traffic. We did this for a client, again, Delta ModTech. Now they gated this, but this type of content, it works really well with trade publications, things like that. So we had great results on this, great click-through rates, just giving away like you content of value to the customer instead of just asking for the sale. Again, I'm going to refer back to Mark Schaefer as a great link. And this deck will be available right after I'm done. You can text for the deck, and it has links to these articles that I'm referring to. This is a good one about the argument against gated content and not setting up those forms to collect user data and leads. And what he talks about is when you give it away for free, people like you, and they're twice as likely then to give up their actual information down the road instead of trying to get it from them first. So very compelling argument. So then let's get down to the trust you, the bottom of funnel, the buying stage. Here we're talking about products and services pages, social proof, links to case studies. And the goal here is form submission with detailed company information. Trying to get, these are leads now. We're trying to get people to actually call in and buy from you. So again, example, Berkshire Hathaway is a product page trying to get the conversion written in the language that, we want, that we're trying to get from them. Again, the digital twin, what did they take? What was the emotional data? What are their hot buttons? What did we get from the keyword research? What did we get from the one-on-one interviews? And we always try and get metrics in there of some sort, something that verifies how successful you are and some data to back up what you're talking about. And of course, case studies for B2B. Tell the story, but do it in a really intriguing way, and one that does more than just throw a case study out there with challenge solution results. We're marketers. They need us to tell the story here. So find some compelling stats and bring the story to life. And be sure to also get the voice of the customer into the piece. This was a really interesting and compelling story about how this client increased capacity up to 2.5 million masks per week. So again, we got a metric in there that somebody in the industry can refer to. And the case studies do really well on trade publication ads as well. There's a link, how to write a marketing case study on the deck. So you can check that out as well. We kind of give away all our secrets. Write a case study. You can then take that and repurpose it and pull out testimonials, because you're trying to get the voice of the customer, and then scatter those throughout your site. So, okay, trust you content. Before we go on to the last part, I just want to bring up the importance that when we're talking about content marketing, we really feel like it's evolved into content plus marketing. It's not enough to just write the content. You also need to distribute it. You need to get the word out there. So, you can create all these pieces of content, but you've got to figure out a way to also distribute it, whether it's a paid ads, publications, SEO. Find a way to get the word out. If you're not ranking for things organically right away, or you don't have a good social media presence, you might have to use paid to distribute. So little tactical thing right there. So we've gone through the 2 steps, kind of the idea of how to build the digital twin and the concept, and then the actual pieces of content, how to implement it through the stages that know you, like you, trust you. Step 3, we're going to talk about using the content to generate referrals from 3 different sources. So it was like a few months back, and really we've been doing content marketing since I think 2000. Well, I started in 2010, Winbound 2014, in terms of getting clients. And we've always kind of had success and clients and people stuck with us through all these years, and they keep working with us and we keep getting them results. But I was like, I could never quite figure out a very elegant, clear way to define how it was working. And then I started again coming back to my old friend, the digital twin. And so it's like, yeah, it's working for everybody. It's working for us, but how? How is this working? How can I explain it? I can do metrics all day long. I can look at different parts of the digital marketing. What's traffic from SEO? What are the conversions here? But I couldn't quite get a big picture that kind of encapsulated everything. And then I kind of came up with this way to think about it. So if we're thinking about the digital twin and their representation of your sales team, well, how do salespeople get leads? They get referrals. That's always been how they get leads. So let's think about every lead that comes in as a referral source. And as you start to look at your pipeline and what's coming in through at the end of the day, consider it a referral source. So when I started to do, for example, Winbound's approach, initially when we started getting out, doing, craft marketing, and just marketing for Winbound in general, most of my referrals came from peers. We really started out just building from the initial ground source, as most manufacturers, B2B companies do. They get referrals. And I let people know we specialize in B2B and very much in manufacturing. That's where I get my first initial wave of referrals. Next up, you start to generate, once you focus in on your niche, start to get your content out there, now you're going to start to get referrals from your niche. So the more contacts you make in your specific niche, the more referrals you start to get. So now I started to get obviously local referrals from people I knew, but as I expanded our content efforts and did things like I showed you with the Numa article, now I'm starting to meet people. I'm starting to collaborate with people on content like we did here with Delta Mod Tech. They reached out to their partners and peers, brought them into the content, made them part of it. Now you start to get referrals from your niche. Okay, so you got 2 sets of referrals. The third one is to think about Google and the internet as a referral source. And the reason why we talk about it that way, and you can think about your advertising as kind of a referral source that way too, but the internet and ranking for keywords in Google, they're not going to rank you for anything unless people link to your site. And that kind of counts as a referral source. So like if somebody is linking to your website, building your domain authority, making you a site that Google sees that other people trust, they'll start to send you traffic. So now we're starting to get traffic for manufacturing, marketing terms, and getting leads that way. And it just occurred to me that it was this kind of 3-pronged sequence of referrals: peers, niche, and then the internet, that we really started to get more leads and more business. And you can see, this is my LinkedIn, who's looked at my profile. You can just see it's gone up, and trying to get the internet, as a referral source in that way too, social media. And the thing that's really compelling to me is when I look at our own pipeline and the new leads that we've had and the people that have converted, the stuff where I've done outbound and really gone out and like gone to trade shows and tried to meet people, and I'll get an appointment, I'll get a lead. but it'll kind of sit there. The things that move over to the right are these referrals that I build, these connections that I meet. Once you get a referral and people are typically ready to buy because they're in that stage, they're like asking their friends, hey, who do you know? And that's who is ready to close and ready to, become a customer. So I'm not saying that the outbound efforts that your sales team makes aren't going to be successful, but I think when we think in terms of outbound, I'm thinking about going out and making referral sources and building relationships and making connections. And through my content, that eventually will translate into a referral of some sort. So how do you measure it all? At the end of the day, you've got to justify it and explain what you're doing. Again, what we really try to focus on is performance and activity. So these content pieces, the know you, like you, trust you stages, they're specific, look at the specific activities that you're doing there, how many pieces of content you've got out, and then what are the goals, what are the measurements that they're triggering? Are they getting traffics? Are they getting links? Are they getting shares? That's that top of funnel. Like you, the downloads, shares on the internet, and then the trust you form submissions called social proof. Folks, this is nothing new. This is just a different way to frame it and think about it as the funnel goes through, and to really be realistic about those pieces of content and communicate to your team what those do. If your management team is going ballistic because you're blogging and that blog posts aren't turning into a lead, you frame it like this, especially for a sales-oriented organization, then they get it. And really, the overall metrics at the end of the day really how do you share or gauge your impact through the organization? You can do channel ROI. Odessa gave a great presentation last month in which she could really track her ROI per channel, and that's invaluable. You've got to see, if these channels are delivering on some of these measurement goals. But really, what at the end of the day, how do you integrate your sales team? We come back to this referrals. If you look at the pipeline, if you integrate what they're doing, and where those leads came from, that can show you how you're really impacting the big picture, especially if they're using the content to build these referral networks. And then obviously overall cost per acquisition. Again, I liked what Odessa was saying about how it's hard to track her agency's impact because they're basically part of her team that's helping build this digital twin and get the message out there. But really, over time, your overall costs per acquisition should go down as your overall, you're generating more leads and more business. All right, let's keep it elegant. Kind of blasted through that. And let's talk about the digital twin takeaways. Look at that. That's just beautiful. Number one, create a digital twin that is shaped by feedback from external and internal sources. Again, your company and your customers. Use content to get people to know you, like you, trust you. And then look for overall increases from your peers, niche, and the internet. And you should be able to get down into that lead, in those leads that close, and figure out where those came from. I'm not saying that, a direct lead from paid shouldn't be, counted as such, but sometimes your ads aren't going to get you a direct lead. And I actually would challenge, there's a lot of work going on in the paid media side to try and generate direct leads from advertising. LinkedIn is very challenging in that respect. So I feel like this is a more realistic solution and realistic approach for people. All right, I kind of did blast through that. Any questions, let me know. We can chat about it here. But you can also text the words digital twin to this phone number. And I'll give you the link to you'll get the link to this deck. There's a link to our digital twin marketing guide. It's online. We're going to be putting a PDF of it up soon, but it's a web page. You can go through the whole thing. There's also an interactive content conversion scorecard, which you can score your own website. And you should hopefully like me after you get those nice pieces of content if the model proves to be successful. So with that said, questions?
Thanks,
Tony.
Greg. If you're shy, go ahead and put a question in the chat. Otherwise, feel free to unmute and speak up.
I'll have a question. Hey, this is Jordy. Greg, thank you, man. That was an awesome presentation. I really learned a lot.
Thanks, Jordy.
I'm happy I sat through this. What sort of, do you guys just work with manufacturing companies or do you work with other firms?
No, we work with other firms too. What we do, Jordy, though, is we focus our marketing efforts on manufacturing. And I mean, ideally, that's where we want the bulk of our leads to come in, just because we have a lot of expertise in that area. But this model applies to any B2B company. And, what we've also found out too is, and I encourage too, any company out there to niche. And that's going to be, I think, my next presentation is how important it is to pick your niche and pick a vertical or an industry. Because what we've also found is we've picked up a lot of clients who want access to the manufacturing industry and some of the referral sources and the contacts that we've had. And it's been great for us because we can make those introductions as well, in addition to the content.
One other question, your process, I know social is a real marathon, not a sprint, so to speak, but are you able to generate leads for your clients? Like, what's a typical timeline? Does it take 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah, I did have a slide in there that would say, how long does this take? And it really kind of depends on a lot of factors, obviously, and that's not the answer you wanted. But when I had that slide up about distribution, I talked about trying to blend in some paid to try and get some more immediate leads if that's possible. But it really depends on how well known you are, and how established you are. So if I put a lead out there and you've got an established brand and you're trying to drive a conversion, that could happen in a month. But if no one knows you, no one likes you, no one trusts you yet, that's a process. And that might take 3 to 6 months before you start seeing some results, especially on the paid side. But I found, when I built my business and a lot of these folks on the manufacturing side or just in B2B in general, you're going to have a sales force, and with your content, you're trying to act in the same way. You should hopefully be able to start getting those leads in within the first 3 months. If you can get in front of enough people, if you can get your guest posting and getting out in front of people to start getting some interest into your site. But it just depends on how well they know you, your product, everything like that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Greg, who's the best person to list as author? Is it the salesperson or the CEO, or do you find more success with one over the other?
That's a great question. We tend to ghostwrite, and usually it's the marketing person. It could be the salesperson. We also, because we're ghostwriting, we'll quote sometimes the salesperson as the source that are in there. We're starting to experiment a little bit more with like opinion pieces, like the one I showed you, where it's coming directly from the source. but it really, again, variables. I don't think it makes a huge difference one way or the other, as long as it's a really good piece of content. It also helps too with your salesperson to, when they do share it, because that's what I do, is I use my content to get my foot in the door and to build those relationships. So when they share it, they're going to have to say something about it and make some comments about it. And that's where they can share their 2 cents, like on LinkedIn or something like that.
What's your take on video content?
Yeah, Jordy does great video content. So Jordy is actually does recruiting, helps place veterans in different industries. Manufacturing is one of your big ones, right, Jordy?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so Jordy does great work with video content and having the veterans come on and kind of tell their story. I think I've got that right.
Correct. Yeah.
And video is fantastic. I mean, use video. I always say use the kind of content that you're most adept at. And we had Chris Lukey on here a few weeks back, who's built his following through podcasting. Jordy, you're getting it done with video. We do the written word. We do blog posts because that's what we're best at, and also works really well with SEO in terms of driving traffic over time. And what we say is, typically, because we're teaming with a marketing department, they can do a lot of the video work themselves and build on what we've done. We just want to be that content engine that always keeps cranking, and we can keep turning it out for them and do it in multiple ways. But really, the more the better. But start out with what do you feel comfortable with and what works great for you. It's like, I think it was one of my media buying professors at UW said, just, I don't care how you do it, just show me the numbers, make sure you're getting in front of people with enough of the know you, like you content to generate, awareness and the frequency and things like that.
Greg, so you're at Dessa, you're a marketing team of one. So what do you do first? Or what do you do if you only got one, option, right? Do you blog? Do you just dive into social? Do you podcast and try to create a niche audience? What are some of your options when you're trying to manage so many things?
Yeah, I guess I'll just kind of like what I was saying to Jordy is, what is your sweet spot? What do you like to do? Mm-hmm. What is your strength? And if you're good at graphics, for example, and you like to repurpose, and you've got a team that can get out there and social and distribute. I mean, social is about distribution, right? Social is about getting the word out there and then making connections. It's not about direct leads. It's really about making those connections. So someone's got to create that know you, like you, trust you content at some point, and pick the team or pick the talent that will help you do that in each one of those stages. And I'm going to be pretty adamant about, you do need content in each one of those stages. It's going to be hard to really, because again, people are in the sales process and they're looking online. It might not be a linear path from the top to the bottom. They might go right to the bottom, but wherever they go, you need to be there with that content that's exactly what they're looking for. And, through that process, which I mentioned in the beginning, I mean, that's really where I'd start, is find out what's working from the sales team, find out what the customers want, create the content in each one of those 3 stages. You're going to have to figure out what you can do with your resources to make that happen. I mean, Odessa works with an agency, which I think is brilliant move, Odessa, to work with an agency.
Yeah, oh, my light's turning off. That means it's time. But I think just to answer your question too, Tony, as like the one person marketing team, from like an operation standpoint, or like from how I would do it if it were me, I would start with the biggest content piece. So like a blog or an ebook. Because then let's say for an ebook, right? From the ebook, then you can make small blogs out of it. Then you can make small social posts out of it. You can make a podcast series out of each chapter. You can make a webinar series out of each chapter. So I'm a big fan of like being efficient and like, okay, let's work 2 months for this content. Then how do we repurpose into different micro doses? Micro doses, is that a word? Um, micro, distribution. So start big and then, just repurpose. Yeah, that's how I
Yeah,
do it.
and I mean, we also like we got to make sure that that sales page is there for people and have that social proof. So if they are ready to buy, like right away, it's there. And then I think you could do what Odessa was saying too, is get that big piece of content as the takeaway. We built, if you go and you click, if you subscribe or just do this text digital twin, you'll get the link to our digital twin marketing thing, marketing guide. And that's a huge piece of content. And like, just like Odessa was saying, we can do all kinds of things off of that now. Crickets.
Questions? Anybody? Any other questions? Thanks, Greg.
Sure. Thank you.
Always great.
Hey, Greg, I got a question for you. This is Ryan Leary.
Hey, Ryan.
So, how are you?
Good.
So, when we post on LinkedIn, either an article or even just information or whatever, do you typically put like our signature at the bottom, like our contact information, or is it more just you leave it out there and they'll find you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I put something out there, my intent is a little ulterior motive, and I'm going for the referral source. So when I did that, again, that Numa post, I was hoping to meet people in the manufacturing realm. And, it's a win-win situation. So it definitely was getting Numa some good exposure. And I think they're very appreciative of it. But I really wanted them to, people to see that and to see the click through to the content and read the content. And if you go to that piece of content, you'll also see at the bottom, there's a link to our site where they can, find out more about us. And it's an inbound link. So that helps us with SEO. So my big goal is, again, just to meet people and make those connections and build that pipeline of referral networks.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Okay. I'm just curious, how many folks are out there doing content marketing and doing some form of this? And what are some of your challenges? Where are you coming up short, or what things are you encountering that are obstacles with this?
Yeah, we're doing this content strategy pretty heavily in our blog and white papers and webinars. I think among our sales team, there's some that really embrace it and some that are more hesitant. So they kind of each have their niche. So in a couple niches, we're going gangbusters, and the other sales guys are still stuck in that old, I'm going to go do it outbound. I don't need your help. And they're just fine doing it that way. So trying to convince them that they're in a new world, I don't know, is the hard part.
Is it a challenge then just trying to show the metrics to back up there's a more efficient way to do it?
Well, I think maybe they just haven't seen their stuff dry up yet. And so they don't have that motivation to change, right?
Right,
So it's
yeah.
always the motivation to change that we're waiting for. So
Okay.
maybe they're just lucky.
Right. Cool. What industry are you
I
in,
would,
Meg?
oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, good. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, well, you and I spoke last week, so you already know this, but I think our biggest thing at my company is time. Trying to put that much stuff out to get attention, keep it going. I mean, I could stay up all night trying to hit every social platform and show up tomorrow morning at 7 and start the other side of your job. It's like you never keep up. At some point, you have to say, I need help. Hence our meeting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's the point about all this content is it sounds great, but man, it is a time vacuum. It just takes a long time. And a marketing director, I mean, you're running around frantically, usually just trying to do your job and get all these things done. And, when do you have time to do the work? You're probably in meetings or your calls or whatever. That's where sometimes you need to do what Odessa is doing and partner with somebody.
Greg, I have a question
Yeah.
based on that. If you were to be the person who was doing the content for one of your clients, who actually responds? Let's say you post something on LinkedIn and you start to get some commentary coming in. Who's actually responding to that? Am I or are you? How does that work?
No, we want you to. We want our clients to make those referral networks. We want our clients to interact with their customers. I'd say success starts with great content and sales start with great content. Like it's the foot in the door. It's the get to know you. Holy cow, these guys are, these people are doing great work. They're reputable. I think, Jackie I'm going to say, nice work, Jackie. And, oh, she responded and okay, now the relationship begins. So again, it's just in this time, I mean, there's automation can do a lot of great things, but you also got to balance it out with the human element. And we got Aaron Courtney on the line, whose company Earthling Interactive is great at automations, but Aaron gets it and is all about empathy and making great connections with people on a personal level too. And I think that's what we as marketers sometimes forget, and because there's so many shiny tools out there, that it's good to, be human, as Mark Schaefer says.
Greg, what do you think about voice in your content, right? So I work for several associations and some of them are kind of, let's say, conservative.
Yeah.
But we still want to talk to people like humans, right? Like you just said, talk to them like they're people. So in your experience, and I imagine like dealing with large manufacturers, maybe some of them have, I don't know, they want to be a pure professional, and so they say things that are always kind of corporate and we and they and that sort of thing, but they may not take some sort of like personal voice in there. So where's the line? Do you advise your clients and do you advise like some of us to be a little cutesy sometimes, to be cheeky in some of our content? Where do you do that? Do you do that at all?
Well, that can get tricky. Take it from a guy who's opened his mouth and put the entire shoe store in there more than once. So you got to be careful with your humor, especially in the written word. Things can get taken the wrong way. But in the same respect, I think if you're just authentic and not a jerk, I think you'll be great. And I feel like social media is the place for your voice. It's a place where you can be yourself and share information about yourself and who you are. And I think the content kind of dictates the voice. So, on some of that research-based content, they're just the facts, ma'am, straightforward, in terms of our writing, we're really not, I'm sorry, I'm not a huge believer in voice for a company. I'm more of a believer in clarity. And are you writing clearly? Because the best writers, the books we all love the most in fiction tend to be where you're just caught up in the story, right? You're just reading for the pleasure of reading and getting the story. Same thing with content. I don't care about your style, I don't really care about that as much. I just need those facts. Now, in the post I wrote about the analytics, that came from me. And that was my voice. And that's where I can talk about my amazing Tupperware skills and how they don't carry over to analytics. But, that's a different, it kind of depends on the individual piece. And if someone wants to be a writer, I think podcasting's great for voice. Oh my God. Yeah. And video too. That's where you can really make those emotional connections that Mark's talking about. And I think that's why Jordy and his team does so well, is they're bringing the people that they're trying to place and showcasing them and letting them tell their story. And I'm just compelling stuff.
That's where I start to think like everybody needs a podcast, right? We all have websites now. Like you wouldn't think of not having a website, of course. So, but again, they can be stuffy and corporate, and there's no voice on those. So how do you give your voice? How do you give your brand a voice? You can do it on social a bit, depending on, obviously we've seen some of the Burger King and the McDonald's people talking to each other through Twitter or whatever, but that's, you got to be careful with that. But the podcast, I think, is a way to, or video, or, obviously doing a weekly or monthly or some sort of like the CEO talk, the CEO blog, somebody from the organization speaking to the brand or speaking on behalf of the brand, I think is like the next thing, right? Everybody has to have some sort of video series or outreach somehow and some sort of medium other than just their website.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I don't know about you, but man, my podcast queue is getting pretty filled up. I love podcasts, but I'm kind of intrigued by, a lot of people use it in different ways, almost as a lead gen and just ways to be out there continuously. And like Odessa was saying, you definitely can repurpose it, and I would add it to the list. And yeah, you're right. It's a great way to get your voice out there. Just be, if you can, try and get other things involved as well. But I'm also kind of intrigued by some of these podcasts that are limited series. Like they just might be around an event. And I've listened to those. I love listening to podcasts when I'm working out. And that's a great way to, get a story done. So, experiment with some of those limited ones too. Those seem intriguing if you don't have the time or resources.
Yeah, I think too, Tony, like you don't have to necessarily be like a Burger King voice, or like the Quick Trip Twitter account is hilarious if you haven't followed them yet. Um, but I think it's important to have a personality. Because like what Greg said, marketers are storytellers. We tell the story of our brand, of our company, of our services, what we're good at, and why we're better than the competition. So like, for example, for us, we have like a webinar series, or we used to, and it's like a thought leadership series where our CEO talks and we have a guest speaker. And it's professional because it's CEO level, and it's very like high level online learning stuff. But also our CEO is a little quirky and he's fun, so there's personality to it. So there's that sweet balance of, yes, this is a good, our clients would get a use out of it, everyone in our industry get a use out of it. It's very informative, but also it's not like listening to a CNN news hour or something. So yeah, I think the personality, I think, is what would make it a little bit more fun, but still kind of kosher professionally.
How was the learning curve in that, Odessa, for them? Did they take to it right away?
Yeah. It was our CEO is pretty game too. So like it's always fun. And now we've actually started a podcast. We're dipping ourselves into the podcast world. But yeah, I feel like everyone has a podcast now. And so we're just trying it out. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And then we go back to webinars. And so, that's the beauty of marketing, I guess.
Right.
Remember when it was controversial for a brand to have a Facebook account? A Facebook page?
Yeah.
It's just for talking and it's personal.
Right.
Now look, everybody.
Exactly.
All right. I think we're at 5:15. Are there any other last questions before we go start making dinner? Or at least I have to. I don't know about you guys.
Just one last plug for next month, because Kyle Ackerman used to do a lot of work with us and we still follow what he posts. So if you do kind of suck at analytics, or if you're really good, it'll be a great craft marketing. Kyle's got a great way of communicating to the right brain thinkers and helping them through. So I'd encourage you to attend.
Data.
I just
like
put a link
data.
to our next couple events on Eventbrite. So go find it there. Sign up and hope to see you there.